Bullet Cream Pies for catering this event. If you get hungry or thirsty,
Can I just sit the fuck
the
down?
food tonight is free, so please avail yourself of their delicious snacks. So let's get down to business first. First off, I want to apologize. I've been battling a cold for the past 24 hours ish, so understand my voice is a little bad at the moment. Um, that said, I'm glad y'all are keeping your distance so you don't catch whatever it is I got. Um, so I just want to begin by saying this is Ask Me Anything. So I do appreciate any questions you want to ask, anything that you are confused about, don't understand from my campaign. Um, uh, I definitely, uh, I definitely don't mind if your question is a little silly, but let's try. I would prefer if we keep on campaign stuff. So, with that being said, does anyone have any immediate questions? Otherwise, I can just throw out some platforms of mine, and we can get questions started there. All right. Well, okay, so first platform first. This one is actually one you guys probably have heard from every candidate running in this election. I definitely want to tackle criminal justice reform. I have some ideas that are actually written down on paper in bill format. It's ready to go. So day one, I'm going to be starting with that. What I'm going to be trying to do is get some structure rules down for probation and parole. We're going to try and get it so we don't have jail time as the only option for you if you've got any if you're getting charged with a crime. Um, you know, when I was working as a defense attorney, one of the hardest things to do was tell a client, they want to put you into jail for a long time. Um, you know, I've been inside of Bolingbrook for consultation with people who have gotten uh, no, denied bail. It's not a fun place to be, even knowing that you're going to go out and you haven't done anything wrong. So I believe that with these additions, we're going to see a lot more people who are actually saying, "Hey, I'll take a couple restrictions on I can do." A lot of them are going to look like what we currently have for bail. But there'll be some additional restrictions. Some will be judge imposed. So if the judge thinks they need to impose this particular restriction, that's going to be up to them. But I believe that a lot of criminals would rather have a lot of criminals would rather have their freedom with the little restrictions put on them actual than actually rotting in jail. And I believe this will help create better help bring up the recidiv the excuse me. I believe it'll actually help with keeping repeat offenders from actually repeat offending. If you said, "Hey, don't do you're not supposed to be doing crime for so many months. If we catch you, we're going to send you back to jail and you will do your full time plus additional stuff." I think a lot of criminals will do that. What really shocked me is I talked about this with several cops, and I thought this was going to be a hard sell for the cops, convincing them that, this is ultimately going to be good in the long run. But the cops I talked to it said, "We're tired of having to give out these long prison sentences. We want to be able to do something that can help people show that they're not going to be a threat to society."
I have a question if you don't mind.
Sure, sure.
What are the actual details of this policy or law?
So let's start with probation. Basically, that probation will be for low level crimes. low-level crimes, mostly misdemeanor offenses without any violence in that offense. What we're going to do is we're going to say you're going to have so many months on probation. Now, when we say months in this, and we think of criminal justice, we kind of tend to think when you go to prison, months will pass by in sort of minutes. The key difference is if you're on probation or parole, months are going to pass more like days. Now, there is going to be a cap, but there is going to be a cap on this. Final numbers not being final, I was thinking cap would be 30 days, and that's going to be if you've, or I'm sorry, 30 months, but that's if you're really like you got a lifetime sentence but you still are eligible for parole.
Forgive me for interrupting. There's
Yeah.
already parole in the city. How is this any different than the current
Well,
parole?
well, right now the parole in city is not standardized. That's going to be the big difference. We do have it on the books, but we don't use it often, and it's not something that um, that is typically offered to criminals. What what I'd like to do is work with the judiciary and the cops to see if we can't work out something where cops can have the option of offering
Yeah, no problem. Absolutely.
parole,
10-4.
basic parole conditions, or probation conditions, and so we don't have to go through the whole court process to get it.
So you would want parole to not be a court process, period. Is that correct?
No, it certainly could be. It certainly can be a court process, and it could be. And we want to have judges authorize certain additional judges only if they want to authorize certain additional restrictions. You would have to get a judge involved, but we could have something like we used to do, where if you have remember when it used to be you had if you were going to sentence someone to more than 180 months in prison, you needed judge authorization. So we could easily get a system going like that, where we have the judge called in and say, "Hey, we got this guy. We're wanting to give probation."
And do you already have all these details ironed out?
Yes, I already have the bill written out. I do. It is a rough draft, so I do have to go and correct my spelling and my spelling mistakes. And then, like I said, I don't have final numbers written down because that's something I feel needs to be discussed with everyone. So its final numbers are not final, but yes, the bill is largely written in a complete state. It will be ready to go day one if after I am sworn in.
So you would want the PD to have not sole responsibility, but majoritively responsibility on giving out parole.
Can I help you?
More probation. The difference between parole and probation is probation is you do no
All agree,
you know
yes.
do no upfront jail time. Parole would be parole. I'm looking
Yes.
at you do
I
half
mean,
your jail
look,
sentence up front, but you leave, and you get certain terms that you have to abide by. And like I said, if you get caught um, you get caught violating these terms, uh, we will have new crime of violation of parole and probation. So that'll be additional. You'll have to serve the time that you would have it for the original crime, plus the time for this one. And if your violation is criminal in nature, well, you're going to have to serve that time too. So
So no different than we already have.
I'm sorry. This is I'm sorry. This is if you get caught violating parole or probation, but I'm not sure if we already have. We definitely don't have violation as a crime.
Interesting.
So, um, so that's one of my first things that I want to do. Obviously it's going to be very popular with among the those who have had a criminal history, because they understand what the thing is. I was shocked. I was personally shocked that so many police officers uh, were ready to get on board with this. I thought that was going to be a tougher fight than I had when I shopped it out to them. So again, with every piece of legislation, it's not going. It'll change as the other legislators I'm working with are go through it and put in their give their input. But this is what I'm working for. Um, it's one of those things. I know pretty much anyone who's ever done defense work for their clients. It can be frustrating trying to get a good deal, a good cooperation deal with them. So it's something we can offer to people and encourage more offerings that shows we're willing to give you a second chance to do better. Um, and hopefully aren't going to be part of the problem anymore. You're going to work doing something better. There's a lot of businesses out there that are run by people who were convicted of crimes, and they've changed their lives for the better, in my part.
You've spoken to police about this. Have you spoken to criminals directly?
Yes, I have, and they were so the, they were more encouraged by the fact that I already had this written. They're kind of jaded right now because they think the criminal justice reform mentioned by every politician. It's something they don't consider. They think it's kind of just words trying to get votes. So I was like, I ran into some members of a criminal organization. We got to talking. I said, hey, I get it. I've been looking for criminal justice reform too, and not not a lot of politicians have put anything truly meaningful in up for up in that terms. So this is so I went and I wrote the bill that I wanted to be put in so that I'm not giving you empty promises. I already have something. So any other questions on that front?
I'll take a bite at the apple here. If the goal is to reform people, well, what is your plan if people, or if it's starting to show a trend that people aren't being reformed by parole or probation?
So like I said, we do have contingencies for that. What's going to happen is we do have the charge of violation of parole probation. So if they're not going to be if they're going to come out of whatever, if they're going to go right back after they get out of MRPD or after they get out of Bolingbrook and they're on parole probation, they go they turn around and they start reoffending. You know, we're not gonna let uh, give them another option for that. I've been having mixed ideas about maybe maybe not taking away parole, but with a probation sentence, that is if you violate that, the next time we'll consider giving you probation is if you are no longer considered a felon under San Andreas state law, which is a 14-day period. So if you're going to go, if at 5 o'clock you are walking out of MRPD on probation, and at 5:30 they're bringing you in for another crime, well, we're not going to be as lenient as the last time, So, it's a chance. It is a chance to show us that you're going to be a better person. It is not something you are automatically entitled to every time you enter into the criminal justice system. All right. Any other questions on probation, parole, other criminal justice reform? All right. So my next big issue that I'd like to discuss, we're going to be working on. I'm going to be working on some economic stuff. Um, my big ideas for this are really I want to see manufacturing come back in full force in the state. So what that is we already have jobs like mining where you go and you dig up precious metals and you sell them to the exchange, and that the exchange will essentially export them to places that need them for whatever goods and services. At the same time, if you run a business, you have a wholesaler who you buy your unique products from, and even some products that you can buy elsewhere in the city, but you buy them for cheaper. So what I would like to do is I would like to get us to a point where the people work in jobs like mining or fishing, forestry, hunting. I'd like to see some other jobs come into state, and we'll talk about those in a moment. But those people will be able to, instead of going to the exchanges and selling their stuff and sending it out of state, they could go up to a business that it needs, let's say a restaurant needs so many pounds of meat. They can go to the restaurant and say, "Hey, I'm a hunter, I'm a farmer, I got this meat. Would you like to buy it off of me for a little bit more than what the exchange is buying it from me for?" And you can make your products. You can make your products that with that, and we can have more economic flow within the state rather than basing most of our economy on exports and imports. So it's more self-sustaining for the state's economy if we do it this way. One
I
good
have a couple
example.
questions.
Go ahead.
How is this something you're sure you can even do as a state rep?
That's a good question, and some of it is going to be a little difficult. I'm not going to lie. This is more long-term project, but I've talked to some officials, and we do have infrastructure to get it moving.
Which
It's something
officials, if you don't mind me asking?
s- certain members of the federal government.
What does that look
Um,
as far as legislation goes, though? You're writing laws, you're not bringing industries in. As great as it sounds, it seems like a different business than what you're going for.
right. So no, with this it'll also be, we might have to do regulation on prices so that, people aren't getting gouged or anything.
So you're trying to regulate.
Okay, so I understand you want to bring in businesses and more industry
Right.
and cooperation and everything. As a legislator, you would be able to, yes, regulate pricing
Right.
and things like that, right? Legislation for that. So are you looking to bring in more business as an entrepreneur, or are you looking to be a legislator because one has to happen for the other?
So no, could you rephrase your question? I'm not
If
following.
you're going to be writing legislation for this project that you have in mind, doesn't the
Right.
project have to exist first? So you're either going to be an entrepreneur bringing in this project, or you're going to be a legislator. I don't see you having time to do both.
No, and no, so this is going to be, more of a this is going to be more like excuse me, 1 second.
Get restless, Red.
Sorry about that. So this is more, uh, working on stuff that'll help the economy in general. It's which I think no matter which I think no matter where you are in in society that you can have this, but it's something I'd like to see moving forward, and
How
I'd
can
like
you
to,
be sure that not increasing the prices on these things will not completely ruin the economy as a whole?
because we've already have these in effect in some industries. If you look at your
I mean, we
if,
do, but not at increased prices and not
well,
adding in more.
well, here's the model I'm looking at. If you go down to your wear and tear shop to get your car fixed up, they have to have certain stuff that they purchase from people who work over at the recycling center in order to do that. They can't just They can't just magic your car up. They need materials. So this is going to be basically, and that model already works. Wear and tear shops are all over the state. There's also a lot of right now. One of the best ways people are making money is through mining. The recent vein of stainless steel.
So wouldn't that just be a barter economy? Why would you need legislation for that?
Because you'd have to be able to you have to be able to make sure certain goods and products are going where they need to. Some stuff might have purposes that are
And who would
This
be
seems more like a
responsible for doing that?
distribution. It seems like more distribution than legislation. It's a
Right.
great idea. Don't get me wrong, but I don't see how this applies to being a legislator.
right. So there's it's something that is going to have to be worked on, and this at that point. There's also a lot of businesses right now. They're really a lot of businesses out there. They're really having trouble making ends meet. So we got to work on how we're going to do that. This is a very big, very multifaceted program that I had in mind. So it will take certain steps to get in place first, and we'll need some legislation going forward.
Of course. Do you mind if I have some clarification on something?
Go ahead.
So you're making promises off of things you don't wholly know if you can actually do.
I mean,
It's yes or no.
it's a little it is a little yes, but I mean that is how every politician works.
No, it isn't. You either know you can do something and confirm that you can or cannot, or you
Right.
make promises on something you do not know.
Well, I have definitely it's not something I can't predict the future. So if this is going to work, this is going to take a lot of effort on a lot of people's parts. However, it's something I'm going to work for, and that's what I can tell you. I don't know if it'll work. I don't know if it'll work out, but it's something that I believe in, and it's something that I will work for coming forward. And it's not just that. I also want to see a lot of. I also want to see a lot of reliance on different aspects of the private sector of industry to help solve some government problems. So one issue that we have is there's a big public safety gap. Cops get overwhelmed from time to time. So one thing I'd like to see done is we got a lot of great security companies going here. They're looking for work. That I know the government wants to see security companies get more work from other businesses. But the problem there is that the businesses are hurting too. They can't afford everything, so they prefer in-house securities. My solution to this would be let's start looking where there's high traffic of civilian population, and see if we can't get some contracts for some security companies to just sit and watch the place and make sure nothing untoward goes on.
So you want to pay people to sit and watch?
I mean, yeah. I mean, so like, if you're going down to the smelter, there's already there's a good risk that you could get robbed of your material. There was a gentleman I met on Christmas Eve of all times who was telling me he got robbed of about $15,000 worth of material, and no, and of his material that he smelted, and because he was inside the smelter and everything he was getting out of it, he put back into his personal vehicle so he could get out of there faster, and someone just came and took everything out. Now, if we had a dedicated security force, dedicated security that could sit on that were paid to watch for people who are doing jobs or just going about their own life, that they would feel much more safe
I
about
have a
that
question.
happening. Yes, Bex?
I feel like you're just describing the concept of a police force. I understand that the concept is to hire private security, but under this hypothetical plan, how would you make sure that safety protocols, as well as weapons training, etc., would be maintained?
Well, that's a good question, and obviously that's that's an area of law that we would have to regulate and make sure that the security companies have their training up, and they are all their employees are meeting certain standards.
Would it make
So,
more sense just to support the police department in helping them grow and maintain and not be a revolving door so they're not overwhelmed instead of hiring private
and
people that
that
we have to also provide legislation for, oversight for, when there's already a police force in place?
As well as more funds as well.
yes, and I will be getting to that, but right now the problem with the police is they have issues with retaining cops.
Yes, we should work
That
on fixing that instead of
yes, but what are we going to
moving their job to somebody else.
yeah, but what are we going to do about the safety of the public while we're working on fixing this?
We help the police department get improvement. If we're going to be putting our money towards the private security department, we're only going to be neglecting the police department further, are we not? It doesn't make
No,
sense to split our
no,
focus at all.
because what I'm proposing right now is we work on as we work on getting more cops into the system and improving cop retention. We still have that problem where where the cops are overloaded. There's been numerous times where 911 calls go unanswered because the cops are too busy, and a lot of times they're coming from people in places where it's known that people are going to be in a high traffic environment, and so that's where the people who want to cause harm to them are going to start looking.
So you wouldn't be taking funding from the police, correct?
No, not
So
at
where
all.
would the funding come from?
We're gonna and that's going to be my next point. We're going to be I'd like to also to see review how we're capturing our tax revenue. Right now we're only taxing small businesses, and many of them are having trouble making ends meet. So right here we're standing on a pretty good a building that where a lot of money moves through, a lot of money is lost by people, and is owned by the government. To the best of my knowledge, we're not capturing any money from gambling. I'd like to see that change. I'd like to work with our our revenue services, see if we can't get some cash, some of that cash that's spent on gambling back going back to the government, so we can afford to do better things. But even then, we
You
already
guys
dropped.
need any desserts?
If I may, sir.
Yeah.
Much of the
Please
it
tell me.
substantiates is that much of the gambling is done by people who themselves are sort of lower financial classes, often addicted gamblers, people who, don't necessarily have a great deal of money themselves. Are you comfortable saying this will be a potential revenue source for the government, that you will, enable people who have problem gambling to spend more? Is this something that you make as your platform?
No, I don't want anyone with problem gambling to suffer. Obviously, we would have obviously we have the Department of Human Services. They would be. I would like to see that they set up a addiction. Excuse me. Help for addicts, both gambling and other vices. But the concern right now is, where's the money coming from? Well, you know, right now most of the money that funds this state is coming from people who can barely afford it, trying to support our economy with small businesses. It would be nice to give them a break, and in order to do that, we need to look for other sources of revenue.
You do realize there are
Yeah.
other departments that are making money for the state, such as SAFA, right?
Yes.
It's not just small businesses.
Yes, but there's the most consistent is DOCL because they get the monthly
Wrong.
fee.
The most consistent is SAFA.
Okay. See, that I did not know, but we don't release the government has yet to release the budget and where they get their revenue. And that's something that when the public comes out and says, "Hey, let's do this," and we don't get to see the budget, we have to make our assumptions based on what we are able to see.
I have a question, if that's all right.
Yes.
So, I'm sorry, to return to an earlier point, I apologize for that. It sounds like, your stated plan for the police, for instance, is just to create a secondary tier of private police who then have access to all police functions. And then this would be done sort of with an entirely different regulatory body and such. Your solution with gambling here, for instance, would also involve having DHS monitoring people for gambling addictions. Aren't you concerned about the layers of redundancy in some of your policies?
No, because right now what we see in government is that there are breaks in everything. Government should be able to, when one part of government is not working properly, we should have something ready that we can use to fill in that gap. And by the way, I'm not proposing replacing the police or giving security access to all police communications or services. What I'm only proposing is using private security companies to watch places that are known high traffic areas while we figure out how we can retain cops.
Of course, I'm sorry, I must be confused. You mentioned 911 calls specifically. If these private security forces wouldn't have access to channels like 911, how would they be able to determine high traffic areas that might be crime related?
I believe you missed the point of what I said about 911 calls. It's that cops can't respond to the 911 calls. We're not asking this private security to go out and patrol all of the state.
No, he wants them to sit on the location specifically, whether they have traffic or not, and waste taxpayer dollars just doing nothing.
I
Kind
don't
of
consider.
sounds redundant.
I don't consider. Well, considering that the cops have very little response to actual citizens.
So help the
citizens.
cops.
Exactly, but right now we have the
And we do
problem
not
of
help the cops by putting focus on another department.
right, but we have the problem right now that the cops do not have adequate resources to train staff to replace the cops that are leaving.
So then shouldn't you push funding towards them instead?
Not everyone wants to be a cop, though.
Yes.
So social workers then, they do very well in other states.
I think what we're failing to see is we have resources that we aren't tapping to help each other. I'm sure many security people would love the chance to help protect people. That's why they get into the industry. But if excuse me 1 second, I just got to take a sip of water. Sorry. So the security is I'm sure all the members of the members of our community who work in private security, they want nothing more than to help keep people safe. And yet they're not getting much in the way of work. And the government has been asking private businesses to hire security contractors rather than in-house security. when I was working with CNT, we got told by the government, we prefer if you hire in-house if you don't hire in-house security, but hire a private firm. But again, most companies are running a very tight budget already. It's cheaper to hire that in-house security than it is to
So
go to contract.
respectfully, there are private security companies that are currently under contract with the government and different agencies. As the Public Defender's Office is contracted with SecureServe, the state government in general has contracted Meriwether Security. There is Meriwether Security people at this event right now protecting state representatives. So it's not like the state government is unknown to reaching out and contracting the private security industry.
Yeah, no, it isn't, and the fact that the government has made those contracts is the reason why was my inspiration. Why don't we fill in the gap that the lack of police officers is, until we can get more cops who can do that kind of, who can be more dedicated to that kind of work, by enlisting our private security agencies to assist. It's not that we don't have the resources to afford them. Obviously, government is already using taxpayer money to afford private security. Why isn't the government asking cops to do the protective work? In most states, cops do protect VIPs. Most states, there's a specific division of state police that are dedicated to protecting the governor or mayors.
Are you confused as to why we're contracting private security or why we're not contracting them to sit on the smelter? I'm lost on your wishwashiness right now.
So where the failing is the government isn't protecting people; they're protecting themselves.
Am I not a person?
Yes, you are, but I don't see you as any different than the people going down to the smelter.
Neither do I. So why do I not just put my time and effort into funding the police force to improve it, and also assist businesses of my own accord with affording security services for their businesses? Why do I have to split the focus on a government level?
Because right now we need to, while we're training up the new cops, we need something to stop it immediately. There's an immediate problem that I agree we have a solution with the police, but I think what you're missing is that the police solution is going to take time and effort. I've been told by
setting legislation to hire private security, because we would have to set a protocol on what they're allowed to follow, how they can respond to operations and in businesses, let them know that they cannot act as a police force. Therefore, there would be regulations on how they can secure any suspects that come into play. They would have to contact police force. There's a lot more that goes into what you're proposing, and it is not just as simple as we get it done tomorrow. It's still going to take time. So why are we wasting that time on this project than the police force?
And, well, respectfully, I don't think I think most security companies understand the restrictions they're under already and are more than willing to comply with them.
That is not something we can assume. That's something we had to set a SOP for.
Right.
I have a follow-up question.
All right.
Have you spoken with any members of LEO Command about this possibility of augmenting their coverage with private security forces?
Not Leo Command specifically, but I have spoken with several people in Leo who have about why we have such a gap in time between hiring phases. So apparently it takes a lot of effort for them to train up all the cops that we need. So I am for figuring out where we can reduce get greater efficiency with that particular movement, but with that particular angle of attack. But again, that's gonna, we gotta dissect what we're doing presently versus what we intend to do and how that could speed it up. That takes That takes time.
So,
Meanwhile,
I'm sorry,
people are
just to
still.
clarify, when you said they spoke to other members of LEO who aren't in command, was it about this specific topic, vis-a-vis private security forces augmenting their numbers, or was it about the hiring phases? Because the way you phrased it made it sound like the latter. I just want to make sure I
Yeah,
understand.
it was about the hiring phases specifically. My initial design, and the reason why I was like I went with this thing is the cops were saying it's the way that they hire is the most efficient it's going to get. Now I don't know that entire process. I'd like to see what it takes more thoroughly, but right now I from my from my position, I would disagree. But I don't have all the information of what it takes in that. And
I
if
like
they're
the
saying this is the best it's going to get, then we do need to find a way we can augment that coverage without without while dealing with the fact that it takes a couple months to get one class through a training.
I like to
So
put
just to
something out.
clarify, you haven't spoken to a member of LEO about this specific policy?
No, I haven't spoken about
Okay.
this specific
Thank
policy.
you. I
This
just wanted to
specific
clarify
policy
that specific point. Thank you.
came out of the understanding that that LEO is has a it has a hard time retaining cops and getting more cops getting more cops up to speed versus how many cops are quitting the force.
I like to put something out there.
Yes, sir.
So clearly, I'm part of an MC,
Mm-hmm.
but I have small bits of knowledge on how Leos operate. Um, I've met some Leos in my life, talked to them before, got a somewhat understanding of the training process. They gotta learn how the MDT works. They gotta learn, you know, uh, you know, uh, when to make the call on calling additionals. They gotta, the, they they gotta set up fucking radar. They gotta do all this, all that. That's why it takes them so damn long to get a class through. They gotta teach them so damn much that you can't streamline it. If you try and streamline it, you you get worse training, you get worse police, and all you're getting is quantity over quality. You want you want quality policing, not a whole shit ton of cops that have bare bones training and just a bit, and they just go, all right, go out the door, go arrest some criminals, have fun. You need
And
quantity. I mean, you need quality, not quantity.
yes, and with the crime in this city the way it is, you also need quantity of securing that you need quantity to deal with it, and we don't have that. And until we can have that, we need to look at other resources in order to help get us there. Like I said, it's great to say, hey, we're going to try and hire more cops and train more cops and get them up to speed to do this job, but people are dying, people are suffering every day while while the cops are doing this. And we got to work on the retention rate. I agree, but what are we going to tell the people at the end of the day when they come and say, I've been robbed of everything, and the cop said, well, I'm sorry, there's just not enough of us to go around. So my solution to that is, while we're waiting to get the cops up to the numbers that we feel are adequate to properly protect this city and this state, why not work with government aid, private sector, to work on a solution?
I agree.
Because private sector isn't always the best thing. Trust me, I worked in the private sector before. It's not always the best goddamn thing. It's really not. You want folks that can be held liable, accountable for their actions. I've done some shit that if I did here, oh buddy, I'd be thrown in the Hague right now. So trust me, private sector is not always the best way to fucking go. It leads to fucking power hungry fucking people getting in and then doing whatever the fuck they want, and making folks fear them. And then guess what? It's just gonna be right back to square one. Not saying it's gonna happen here, but I've seen it. It ain't fucking pretty.
All right. Well, I'd like to talk with you more about that experience, sir.
Trust
If
me,
you
you don't want to.
no, no, I do.
Half the
really
time my
do.
fucking store gets robbed, no cops show up. So, I mean, I'd rather have some private security there than nobody.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing we want. If we want to, if we want, you know, it's work that it's a substantial. It's a good line of work. It's a good solution for the current problem. It's not going to be the status quo. I hope. I hope we get our cop numbers back up. But we got to look at reality, and reality is right now we don't have the state does not have the resources to adequately protect them with just the police.
Not
I have
everyone
a
wants to be a
follow-up
cop.
question. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Not everyone wants to be a cop, by the way. So, I mean, having someone looking out for our interests is still a good thing.
And nor can everyone, nor sir can everyone be a cop. Some of look, some security people, they used to do some they used to have criminal, or they do have criminal past, and the security companies can obviously see when that they are working to better their lives, and they understand that people make mistakes, but we do have a bit more restriction on that when we hire for cops.
I do have a question. Couldn't the same thing be said for security? Because I mean, like, it could just come back to them too. They could be understaffed and overworked as well.
Right, but right now, I believe SecuServe and I can get the correct numbers. I believe they have a large a large base of people who can fill that gap area. And if they're getting overworked, you know that we can we'll be able to. Excuse me. You know, like I said, it's not the best solution, but it's the solution for what we got at the problem we have at the moment.
I have a
Can I-
follow-up question.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, Bex?
Have you spoken to anyone who actually runs the day-to-day operations of these private security companies about this policy and how it would affect their schedules? Because I know they already do sign private contracts on a regular basis. So I'm wondering how this model would change their operations.
That's a good question, and no, I have not, but I will be reaching out to them to do just that. Next question over there.
Yeah, so I think this is kind of maybe an observation, is that if you go through any downtown core, you're going to pass 6 or 7 different buildings on any block that are secured by different private security companies. If you go to any mall in America, it's secured by a private security company of some sort. I think it's not really a matter of like changing laws as much as it is providing accommodations for the publicly owned spaces to have additional security contracts applied to them. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yes, that is exactly what I'm looking at. There shouldn't be this much concern about saying let's get some this is something we are already doing. Let's expand it to help keep people safe.
If I may, sir.
Yeah.
Would it not be prudent before you are proposing platform ideas about supplementing law enforcement with private security, or expanding the scope of private security as it pertains to interacting with law enforcement, or sort of supplementing their positions, that you would speak with law enforcement, or that you would speak with management of some of the larger security firms to see if this is something that would be an appropriate move, or something they were prepared to do, or is it just something you are making assumptions based on your own outside observations without speaking to anyone who's in charge of such organizations?
So this is like I said earlier, I have spoken about different matters related to this, and it is a solution to the problem that I've been seeing come up. My original intent here is to solve the problem of how do we keep people safe while the police force is understaffed, and we're working to improve staffing. So yes, this was yes, I do appreciate that feedback, that and I will be reaching out to other but stakeholders about this. But this is this is the idea that I came up with to fix a problem that I think we all know is there. How do we
Yeah,
solve
but
it?
if it is platform idea for your political platform, should not it have a fair amount of research before you present it to the public? You should be, talking to the relevant people. Obviously you can't pass legislation unless you are elected, but at the very least you could do basic research of talking to the people in the relevant fields. Law enforcement, command, private security, industry leaders, to see if this would be an appropriate move. Yeah.
I if you don't mind, could you I just had my ears pop moment back there. Do you mind repeating that question?
I just, if it's going to be a policy platform for you and a solution you would propose to the public, obviously you can't pass legislation unless you are elected. But if you are going to propose it and put it forward to the public for public view and scrutiny, would it not be prudent to at least do the various research and talk to members of those fields, the LEO command or leaders in the private security industry, to see if this would be an appropriate move, as opposed to just relying on hearsay or people you have heard talk about this as potentially a good idea? Would it not be a good idea to go directly to the sources, do this sort of research ahead of time before presenting it as platform idea to the public?
I would say that by presenting it, I'm open to feedback. I understand, I don't know everything, but you know, and the response I got tonight has raised some good questions that I will be asking about. But it still is an idea I think is a good solution. And if I'm always open to modifying it based on feedback from others.
May I?
Yes, sir.
As a business owner myself, no one likes getting robbed, right? And the fact that the police don't show up, 2/3 of the time, it gets rough. Like you kind of want to just throw in the towel. Having an idea of having private contractors come out and patrol my store makes me feel a little bit more at ease. I can't always rely on the police, and that's the thing. It's not good for anybody. So I've heard Ari's got hit. I've heard the coffee shop got hit a couple times. Like, and there's not a lot of police, especially if someone's trying to rob a bank or do some real grimy bullshit. I think having some private contractors out there to help us out. I mean, we're not expecting them to do the police works, right? We're expecting them to just show a little muscle.
Yeah, and sometimes all you need is sometimes all that you need for a deterrent is just showing that the security is there.
I know I had to buy, or not buy, pay for security for my place, considering I'm down on the pier. I also had to, you have to put in certain precautions when you got a company like that, like having an ATM close by.
Exactly. Or,
Yeah.
you work at a gas station like me, and they want to hit the fucking store because they got intel and shit, like it's bad.
And I will say this: the pier was one of the earliest. The pier and the fishing community that used to be out there was one of the earliest phases of this idea, because there used to be a vibrant fishing community off near Pearls, but because it started going fishing became less profitable, people started leaving, and those fishers that stayed kept getting robbed when they went to sell their goods. So if we had some constant security, be it police, be it private, out there just watching out for other people, that wouldn't have been the case. And that's the idea I'm going for. We're not looking to replace cops with private security. We're looking to have someone watching your back when you're doing your job. And that's what I think that's one of the things I think a lot of people in government don't understand, is the cops are not immediately responsive to 911 calls. They prioritize the banks. They prioritize the convenience stores. They prioritize the jewelry store. They don't prioritize the ordinary citizen trying to live their life crime-free.
So it's already possible for many of these businesses to hire the private security companies that already exist. So is the sort of thing
A
you're
gas
proposing?
station?
The gas stations. I mean, if somebody privately owns a gas station, you know, that would be up to the owner for the gas station. Are you proposing that the government then contracts private security to act as security guards for things like gas stations, convenience stores, these sorts of
Hubs.
things?
No,
Is this what you're proposing?
No. What I'm proposing is that the government hire contractors to protect publicly owned spaces like the smelter, which no one privately holds at this time, or like the pier, which has a bunch of companies on it, but is publicly accessible. So we're talking more like Legion Square, the pier, places people go to hang out, but aren't. But no one person can hire a security company to be there. They're technically the government's public space. They belong to the commons. That's what I'm looking to hire the security companies for.
So you want to enable private security to act in a capacity not identical to, but similar to law enforcement on public or state property, to enable them with powers that's beyond the scope of what is usually enabled to private security. When somebody works in private security, they have very specific powers that are enabled to them in the course of their duties based on the site security or close protection or other duties as is their remit by the hiring. But if they are given a contract to work on what is essentially public land or state-owned land, you're now talking about creating a whole new SOP for private security to have a similar authority level to a police, but not identical. Is this what you are proposing? Yeah.
They're trying to help out the city. If I had people down in Little Seoul, guarding Little Seoul, I think there would be a lot less robberies, and I'd get shot a lot less or kidnapped. You know.
Who would assume liability?
Exactly. I mean, you know, how many people here have been kidnapped to be used as a hostage in a robbery, store, bank, Evangelicos? You know, these people don't want that.
I have a question.
Yes, Bex?
Who would assume liability in the case that a private security agent impugns on a person's, rights as a citizen? Would that be assumed by the company or the government, or how would you sort of set that up legally?
I would say that could be assumed by a combination of the company and the government, depending on depending on how bad it is. I would say ultimately it should be resting with that individual, because they were clearly they would probably have been not following proper training. But that's something that all private security firms accept when they take a line of work. If someone's going to sue you for violating rights, they're going to sue you for that.
So to be clear, you want people to work as private security on public land or state-owned property, but if they violate the law or someone's rights in the course of their duties, it's personal liability, and the individual so transgressed against has to take up personal criminal charges against that individual, not the state or the company who employs them. Or
Well, I would imagine the company would have legal staff on hand just in case from the get-go. Lots of companies also have. Lots of companies have a lawyer on retainer, so in case they do get sued.
So are you saying the company would be liable then, or would it be the individual who worked for the company?
I would ultimately say it's down to the individual, but I would imagine that the company would get hit just because you go for where the money is, and that would be the company. So that would ultimately be up to who the plaintiff decides to sue. It's not something we're going to write in law.
So you are asking private security contractors then potentially to take up contracts for the government to act on public land and state property. But then if something happens and an individual decides to bring suit against them over the course of their duties, wrongly or rightly, it would be individually who is found liable, and then it would be up to the company to decide whether they want to represent this employee or simply fire them, cut them loose, and let them be individually held liable. So you're saying you want the private companies to hold complete liability for any issues that may arise from being government contractors? Is this correct?
No, sir. It would be the liability would be on whoever the parties decide to sue. If the Department of Justice feels like this is something they want to get involved with, they can certainly jump in. That's how it works. That's how it works in general. Whenever you just sue something, when I was working as a attorney, I would start off any suits against the police by naming the individual officers who were violating clients' rights. It was the Department of Justice who said, we'll take this because they were working for the state at the time.
I'm sorry, I do have a question. If it's all right, it's a question about criminal justice reform.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry. My name's Oliver Hall, and I have sort of a two-part question. First, do you support the Speedy Trial Act? And if you do, what will you do to make sure that it's signed into law?
Can you the Speedy Trial Act? Actually, there's language in the Speedy Trial Act that I actually contributed it to. So I wrote up part of it, not all of it, but part of it got written. I wrote as a proposed bill for another matter, and that got included. So yes, I
Wait,
do
sorry,
support
I'm confused. Which bill is this?
Speedy Trial Act.
No, I'm sorry. Which part?
It was the part about the ability to recover damages for improper imprisonment. So there's a part in the Speedy Trial Act, if I'm recalling the correct bill, where if you're found innocent and you were put into jail, you can recover damages from the state. So that was the part I contributed to. But I do support the Speedy Trial Act.
Oh yeah. Apologies. I was unsure. I didn't recall that part being written in.
Yeah.
Writing it.
Yes. So yeah, no, I fully support Speedy Trial Act. I think we should, if we're gonna be, we shouldn't be holding defendants forever while we wait for the courts to go, unless the defendant wishes to to have an extension of time for whatever reason. All right, so excuse me. So we've gone about a good hour on this now. I would like to. I know we had the issue of police come up, especially police retention. I do have some thoughts on that. One of my thoughts is one thing I'd like to do is talk with cops about how we approach training the officers. As someone mentioned, you have to get them a certain training before they can go to the field. One thing I've been excuse me a second, my hang on. So one thing I've noticed is that, the way we're approaching this is we're saying as police agencies are hiring at a certain period of time. We hire people on, and then they go through their academy training, and then they got to be trained with an FTO. Now that's the solution. That's the way that it was explained to me why it takes so long. One thought I had to speed this up a little is we set a schedule. We create a new almost a new branch, and I do like that we're bringing back the state troopers. I feel they could be the best area to put this part of the police services. But we can always talk about which one. I think we need to have some kind of dedicated training academy for police. That we have people who are hired specifically to train new officers on the thing. They're not going to be out in the field. They're going to be developing. They're going to be working on teaching, so that we can have people come in to these courses and have them ready to go on a timely basis. I'd like to see the. I don't know how long the current academy phase actually runs for, but if we can't, but my thought is if we can get the academy on a much more consistently timed basis, what we could do is have people who sign up for the police academy, and then after that they apply to branches that are currently hiring, rather than open up only let people train at the academy while hiring when we're ready to hire. So if you want to be if you want to be a cop in this state, you go to you apply to the academy, and that's going to be having a rotating period of classes. Once you complete the class, if there's an agency hiring, you're allowed to apply to that agent. You can apply to that agency. If not, it would definitely work. We could definitely do something like have it work hand in hand with the security contracts. Maybe we have security contractors. One of the perks of one of the conditions is one of the set terms for is that they have so many people who have had San Andreas Academy graduation on their records, so that they do have people who know what they're doing to some extent. So again, obviously, this is something that we're going to have to look. I'll have to look at with all the stakeholders about what's going on when we do this. It's not the solution. It's not the set in stone solution, but it's something I'd like to work with the police to figure out how we can best get more cops trained up faster. And no, I do agree. You need you want the better cops. You want better cops you want quality over quantity. But right now we're losing more cops than we're replacing with every hiring phase. We need to fight this. We need to fight this somehow, and that seems to be the problem that the current administration has not addressed. Is there a question, sir? Okay. Any questions, comments about that? Oh. All right. I guess one final thing I would like to address is a particular amendment I'd like to see to the Constitution, and this would be how we actually amend the Constitution. Presently, you have to propose the amendment in the legislature, and you have to get unanimous support, and the governor has to sign off. The problem I have with this is that the Constitution is not like your typical law. Sure, the Constitution needs some sort of needs to be more difficult to amend than your typical law. And the Constitution is also the law that your nation, that your state or your nation has that explains what the government is allowed to do and what they aren't allowed to do. It's the promise between the government and the citizenry on how everything is going to be run, where the rights are, how we respect and what rights and how we're gonna be respecting those rights. So it only makes sense to me that when we propose a change to the Constitution, the stakeholders aren't just the government; it's everyone in the state, and so this solution would be, instead of having the governor authorize the new amendment, what will happen is we will have a referendum at the next election for that amendment to go through. So that way all citizens can have a say on if they believe this change is something that we need to force upon our government, and helps keep the stability of the Constitution preserved.
Travis,
Yes.
when it comes to the Constitution,
Mm-hmm.
the Speaker calls the vote, and it would need a majority, but also we need 3 judges to vote on it also. One of them has to be the Chief Justice, which we do currently have an amendment to the Constitution right now, which we are waiting on the votes to come through. So it is sort of shared, the votes there.
Right, but here's the thing. The Constitution needs a lot of review. If you look at how the U.S. Constitution is amended, you don't just need both houses to pass it by a supermajority. You also need a supermajority of states to pass it in both of their houses. You need a lot of people, and most states, when they amend their own constitutions, they do give a referendum to the people, so that the people can have a say if this particular constitutional amendment is something that we need. I don't, as long as, I want to see a lot of, I want to see it almost as difficult as possible to make change the Constitution, because again, the Constitution is a document that exists to create stability of government. If you have a small amount of people who, you're saying we have 9 people, excuse me, I forgot the governor, who are part of this decision-making process. I would say to you that's not enough, because 9 people is not enough to justify a change to the Constitution. You need more people to do that. And you need the people who are going to be most affected by it, and that includes the general population.
Okay, so how would your referendum work then? You say you want it every 4 months, you say?
So yes, so if we pass a constitutional amendment in a particular congressional session, it won't be immediate. It'll be finalized by a vote at the next general election. So it'll be put on the ballot it'll be put on the ballot along with who do you want to become governor and state rep. And I do think at that stage we can assume a simple majority of the popular vote is enough to confirm that this is a valid amendment that should be passed. I don't see a need for a supermajority of the general population on this. However, again, it needs as many checks on a constitutional amendment needs as much checks as possible. And I don't see a problem with adding one more.
Hey, sorry, I have a quick question regarding your probation bill. I know you said you had it written up and everything.
Yeah.
Are we able to read that now, just so we can all take a look?
Yeah, I'll try to get that out in the coming days. I wrote it actually a long time ago, so I got to go back and find it in my documents. But yeah, that will be made available shortly. Any other questions? Anyone come with concerns that weren't addressed about issues that you're facing in your life that you want to bring up, that you want to see government take up? Okay, then I guess thank you all for coming out. Please make sure if you haven't, please please avail yourself of the fine treats that Cream Pie has brought tonight. They are very delicious. And I'd like to thank once again them for their hard work in catering this event, and I'd like to thank the fine people at SecuServe for also providing security for tonight's event. Thank you all. Stay safe out there.